Welcome to the Dissent Agenda. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Cody. We're just two loudmouths with Wi-Fi, a mic, and zero tolerance for bad politics.
Every week, we dig through the dumpster fire that is national politics, so you don't have to. From clown car congressional hearings to billionaires cosplaying as patriots, we call it out and call it what it is.
Then we bring it home, literally. Stick around for our Locals Only segment where we spill the tea about what's going on right here in Virginia Beach.
Because what happens in Washington doesn't stay in Washington. It shows up at our school board, our city council, and on our grocery bill. This is the Dissent Agenda. Let's get into it. It's going to be a little different. The person sitting next to me is definitely not Cody Connor. On the Dissent Agenda, we really like to talk about local issues, and we have a very important measure on the ballot this November. Everyone has seen the signs all over the city using fear tactics to get you to vote no on the 10-1 voting system. And I have invited former Councilman John Moss to the studio because I think it's important for people to understand exactly what they're voting for or they're voting against. And I want you to hear it from two people who are on complete opposite sides of the political spectrum, right? I think that's important.
We have shared common ground.
We do, and especially with voting rights, right?
Correct.
We do. We both agree passionately about this, and so. But I do think it's important that people see that you can have completely differing opinions on many different matters.
Honorable people can have honorable differences.
That's correct. And then we can come together and talk about things to make sure that people understand that we can talk about it, we can explain it, and we can show our perspectives regardless of our agreements on any other topics. So thank you for joining me, John.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to talk about how we got here, but we don't have enough time to share all the shenanigans that you and I know has gone down, because I have been following this. I think my first speech at City Council was about the appeal, which is really kind of funny to me with you because I did my 3-minute speech and you did like an 8-minute rebuttal to me on my position on the appeal, which I actually found to be, I was like, man, I kind of respect John on that. Even though I didn't agree with your opinion on the appeal, I understood what your position was about the appeal, and how you wanted it to go through the full adjudication process and the responsibility of the city to push through with that. Still don't agree with that, but that's okay. So that was, I think, the start of our budding relationship.
Well,
and also which then also surprised me with your support for 10-1.
Correct. I've always supported the district system since 1988.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't agree with Judge Jackson's novel legal theory, which gave the plaintiff standing.
Right.
And that is different. And I don't believe in the ends justify the means. And I'm not in for. So therefore, I am for 10-1.
Yes.
And for strong reasons. And I think the ballot question is independent of the litigation.
Fair.
Our founders didn't create a hybrid system for Congress. All our Congress members are by districts. They were all 30,000 residents at the time.
Yeah.
We don't have all at large election of House of Delegates or the state Senate. And all the counties in Virginia started off with, and still have today, district systems, as did Princess Anne. So district systems really is the norm in our country for a reason.
Correct.
Accountability, competition, and closeness to the people. And it doesn't eliminate the influence of money, but it diminishes as much as possible the influence of money. And I think anyone who believes in competition and accountability would be in favor of a 10-1 system. If you think that your wallet or your financial status should give you extra voting leverage, then obviously you'd be opposed to 10-1, which we are seeing that. But if you're for accountability and really making sure that the government is closest to the people, which is what our founders have did, which is what the state of Virginia has practiced, then you're for 10-1 because it takes money more out of the equation.
Yeah, I'll give it just a brief history. So a woman named Latasha Holloway, she challenged a voting system that had been in place since the 60s, believing that it was diluting the minority vote and therefore not receiving proper representation on city council and school board in Virginia Beach. Ultimately, she won her case. There was an appeal, and I don't really want to get into all the convoluted stuff with all of that.
Well, there's a long explanation of how we got here
There
today.
is really
That'd be
long.
a separate show.
Right, exactly. And so the judge, basically the federal judge, as you said, forced the city to go into a 10 single member district voting system with one at large as the mayor.
Correct.
Okay.
And one at large with the school board.
And one at large with the school board, correct. Which the school board does not have. Some people could say the chair is the mayor of the school board, but that's voted on by that body once they go into session.
But basically, it emulates the council election process.
Yes, correct. So would you share the difference between the 10-1 district system and the modified 731? Because I think the modified 731 is confusing for a lot of people. I think the 10-1 is pretty explanatory, but how they're trying to present this modified 731.
Well, I'm going to explain. Virginia Beach in the beginning had all at-large members, and it had so it was a 731 system. And that was the borough system. Actually, I was the Kensville Borough Council member at one time.
I was in Beach District.
So Blackwater was a borough with about 2,000 people. Tungo was a borough of about 4,000 people, and Kensville was 120,000 people. So you had to live in that district to run in that district, but everyone voted for you. So the first change that took place, that wasn't the one the public asked for because they wanted to go to a district system back then when they had a referendum, was to make all the districts the same population. So Blackwater and Pungo went away, and you got the Princess Anne district.
Equal.
That was
right.
So all the population was the same, but you still had to live in that district to run. But you were elected by everyone.
And that happened in 1996.
Yeah, about that time.
Because the 1994 referendum
came out of in 1990. There was an election in Lynn Haven where Al Balca was elected was majority of the people who lived in the Lynn Haven district voted for Al, but he got voted out by forces outside of, I'll put it this way, money interest. So he did not win, and that caused to have a mayor's commission on redistricting when Myra Ovendorf and Mr. Clark was a lawyer with time, was the chair. I served on that. It came back and recommended going to a district system, which was put on the ballot, which passed. When it got to Richmond, as you well know, it passed the House of Delegates, but thanks to then Senator Stolley and Will Sessoms behind the scenes, what turned into what the public asked for wasn't what they got. They got equal districts, and then they got that a second referendum with a somewhat confusing question. And then the voters voted just the opposite, saying they wanted to preserve the all at large voting system.
Yeah. So
it wasn't a modified. So we still had 731, but everyone still voted for everyone.
They
nothing really changed. They undid what the
1994 referendum did, which by the way, I think it should be, I think for viewers and listeners, it's very important. I talk a lot about the 1994-1996 situation. I talk a lot about it, and very few people do.
And there was a lawsuit that followed that in 1997 in federal court. The first.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes, I have a copy of all the proceedings on my table. I should have brought
I'm so surprised I don't know that.
1997 there, and Judge Jackson was the judge, and at that time he ruled in favor of the city, saying that they did not have standing under Section 2, and basically it was the census and all those things ruled for the city.
Sure. Yeah.
There was then another lawsuit filed, obviously the one that was the Holloway lawsuit.
Yep.
And then that's where the coalition of minorities constitutes a minority for the purposes of Section 2. Very, very intricate legal discussion. I won't go into that here, but that's how they got standing. They ruled. In the interim, after the trial was in October. The decision came out, in May, December, like December 6th or 7th, something like that, early December. Then in the General Assembly, Delegate Fowler put in a bill, House Bill 2198.
2198, yeah.
And that said that it was general legislation, not charter change.
Applies to the whole state.
It's also that if you had a electoral system where there were residency requirements to run in a given district, then only the voters in that district could run, which basically means now the city's charter that said 731 all at large was supplanted by this legislation. And then there was the Voting Rights Act, which was passed in the very same General Assembly, which had a process, but two major provisions. One was saying that if you had all at large voting of any type, even in a hybrid system, you had to show that that didn't work to the disadvantage of opportunities groups. It didn't use the word minorities. It didn't set a percentage or any threshold, just said opportunity. And it also had a provision in that legislation that stated that as a consequence of a decennial redistricting process, if that decennial districting resulted in a result that would be in conflict with the city's charter, the decennial redistricting would prevail.
Which decennial? That's basically every 10 years from the census.
So the lawsuit was because of those two bills. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said that, the original lawsuit no longer had relevance because the electrical system could no longer exist, and declared the case moot.
Right.
But they did not dismiss the case.
Not on merit.
They never addressed the merit of the case. They then preserved the plaintiff's right to go right immediately back to district court without having to establish further standing once the city came up with another electoral system. Well, the city never came up with another electoral system. At the time I was on council, and also this Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, while the hearing was in March, they issued the decision in late August. Late August. No time to redo ballots. There was no time to do another system before November. The case still had standing. So
we had our first elections.
Our view, this council's view at the time, and people can look at that differently. And from now, having looked at the state court's answer, and I'll come back to that, said, well, we went through the state process under the Voting Rights Act. And we didn't, the special master based the districts on the decennial census. So our position was, decennial census, we went through pre-clearance, didn't say the Attorney General approved our plan. He just said it was not in conflict with the State Voting Rights Act and didn't tell us it was in violation of SB 2198 either.
Right.
So we proceeded and had our election in November of 22. I didn't win that district election. But that doesn't mean I still can't support, because I don't base things on whether it benefits me and who does it benefit the people that I would serve.
Which I find that to be, just pause there, because John, I think it's really important for people to understand that you ran a race in 2022 under the 10-1 district system.
Correct.
And you didn't win that race. And you still are behind this district system.
I am, because the district system, as I said before, it provides the best opportunity for competition, which means more people can compete on a smaller basis. It brings accountability, and it diminishes what we all distastefully dislike about American politics, is this money. And we don't get people who want to run for the right reasons, because I can't afford to run, I can't do this. It opens up the opportunity and competition. We all benefit from that. It's amazing people that on one side argue for capitalism, which I do too, free market, but the last thing they want is competition for power.
Right. Well, and it also opens it up, and I see this in District 7, and this is just my own personal opinion, but I think that it also, the money piece allows you to throw money behind someone who isn't really dedicated to serving the people, but will actually just vote the way that the moneyed interest wants you to vote.
Well, we have a lot of history of that. So what happened? So we went and had the November election. So we circle around, we come into 23, and September timeframe of 23, the city's wanting, I guess, this case to be dismissed, but they can't get it dismissed. So the city comes up with an agreement of all the things that they're going to do. They're going to pass an ordinance. They're going to make for the charter change. They're going to take all these actions. And that was late September.
Well,
They-
mid-August 2023 is when they actually voted. We got a 10-1
Yes.
vote in favor of
Yeah.
the charter change.
Right. But the agreement that they
Mhm.
filed with the court was
Okay.
in September.
Got it.
So now they've entered. And so Judge Jackson, this now gets in November 27th, I think it was. The case gets dismissed
Mhm.
based on both parties agreeing.
Well, we also had the vote. We had a super majority vote showing the
dismissal
court.
of the case also opened up the opportunity for the state litigation.
With Linwood Branch.
Because if the federal case was still open, the federal case would kind of take precedent. But since now the case had been dismissed, there's no outstanding case.
Plot.
Oh, so anyway, so roll forward to the state thing. It's important to note that at the time that the plaintiffs asked for, first they asked for the outright declaration of the system as illegal. They didn't secure that. This is pre-trial.
Yep.
And then they asked for an injunction,
Which they didn't get.
The city also asked for dismissal of the case.
Of course.
They didn't get that either.
Mhm.
So then the trial proceeds. The city was not able to offer the defense of the Voting Rights Act. The judge did not allow that defense of the system. The city chose not to appeal, which I think was probably a smart move. I don't think. And then they entered into this vote to have a referendum. The plaintiff said, "Wait a minute, you violated the terms that promises you made to the federal court." And Judge Jackson then issued his order on July the 8th. Basically, he vacated the case first. Then he ordered the July the 8th. The plaintiffs filed their filing on his judge order on the 7th of August. And then the city came back, I think on the 17th of August, something like that. They filed their filing and asked for three things. First of all, the plaintiffs asked for a declaratory judgment to reinstate 10-1. The city asked for first to dismiss the case for lack of standing, the I talked about.
Yep.
They weren't going to get that, I don't think. Hasn't ruled yet either. They then next, if you're not going to give us a summary dismissal, we'd like an interlocutory judgment, which would mean they wanted the judge, which is something they're not entitled to. The city isn't, but Judge Jackson could grant that, would be to go immediately to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals to resolve the standing question only.
Oh, okay.
Because I'll come back to why that's important. And then lastly, they asked, since there is not a 731 system that exists in fact, I mean, there's no boundaries. How can you say something doesn't meet a law if you don't have something you're physically assessing? So they asked it to be held in abeyance, which is basically in accordance with the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals initial decision. So I think that's probably where Judge Jackson's going to actually say in the end is that. Now let's come back to this question of, in the original opinion, 130-page decision of Judge Jackson, the plaintiff's position was that while it's true that African Americans are only 18.9% of the population, there are a lot of minorities that exist, which basically was Hispanic, Pacific
Filipino.
Islanders, and Asians. That was basically those things, and you could find, which is called the Jingles test. That's another little thing that's a judicial precedent of how that they are places in the city where they're geographically compact, which is a requirement, where these groups are not able to get elected, right?
And which we have evidence of,
right? Oh yeah, that was all presented. I mean, but the concept of that a coalition of minorities could constitute a minority is an unvalidated legal construct.
Correct.
So therefore, that was my reason for appeal. This needs to be tested, just not accepted. So anyway, so that's where we still are today. So whenever the vote comes out, if it comes out 10-1, no one should presume that the 10-1 district boundaries that we have today would be the boundaries in the future.
Right.
I mean, because to me, we're saying, what kind of system do we want?
Right.
Ignore the current boundaries, because that's going to be a whole nother set. And likewise, 731.
It will be a whole nother set of boundaries.
Boundaries, and they're going to have to comply with the State Voting Rights Act. Probably won't have an issue. I don't believe ultimately they're going to prevail on that minority thing. I just don't see the judicial climate today being favorable on that construct.
Right.
But I could be wrong. But needless to say,
I don't think I
it's-
disagree with
it's
you,
not
actually.
over till it's over.
Mhm.
But people should enter into this thing saying, would you like greater competition?
Mhm.
Would you like to diminish the influence of money?
Yes.
Would you like to have people that I've always thought, would you rather have one share of Berkshire Hathaway preferred stock where there's not many of those and your vote really counts? Or would you rather have the common share where there's a gazillion people and your influence is really basically
Diminished.
It's really ineffectual in reality.
Absolutely.
And so when people need to think about Virginia Beach is 249 land square miles.
Mhm. We are a big city.
Over 100 precincts.
108.
So ask yourself, what's the likelihood that someone who says, I aspire to be an at-large member can effectively run unless they're independently wealthy? So money eliminates those positions from
Correct.
most people.
Correct.
Whereas you're in a district of 46,000 people with 32,000 voters, probably it's about close.
Yeah.
Then your ability to go door to door and free social media and effectively get your voice out.
Yeah.
So let me give you two examples where I think this shows how district systems increase competition. Doesn't guarantee you how they'll vote.
Right.
But take District 10. Think Green Run District.
Yes.
Think Jennifer Rouse.
Yeah.
So she runs for this office. She spends less than $30,000. The opponents, backed by the same people backing this vote against the district system, spend over $150,000. Have the governor come down here. They throw a big carnival, give away free food.
Drop $50,000 like into her account 2 weeks before voting, I think, something like that.
So, and Jennifer Rouse wins by over 10%. So there's a case where now let's take another district, District 3. The incumbent who had served 2 prior terms at least 2 under the prior all-at-large voting system, right? He runs in District 3 for re-election. You had 2 people run. One was very on the fringe, but the other one was a candidate, but spent marginal money. The incumbent, 2-term incumbent, won with only 51% of the vote.
Right.
Now that tells you that, that means a person who spent little money against someone who really relied upon these other voters outside their district to win because that person votes for the campaign investors that get him elected. So you can see in another case, even take District 8.
Oh, yeah.
There were 2, I'd say all 3 candidates were in that race as well. One spent over $200,000. Nice gentleman. Don't have anything against him personally, but I'm just trying to show about the competition. He only got 49% of the vote. Now, of course, in Virginia Beach, you can get elected on a plurality. I often did.
Yeah.
I think if we had to have a change on top, whatever system prevails, we should go to runoffs.
Listen,
because no one should be being elected on 33% of the vote, like in District 2, where they crowd the people, that divert so they can still get their win.
I'm a huge fan of ranked choice voting.
Well, I'm not a fan.
I know you like runoffs. We talked about those.
But the point is that people that win should win because that was a majority choice.
I agree.
And so we don't have a mayor with 41%, so that.
Oh, is it 41%, the mayor? I thought it was less than that. Actually, I thought it was in the 30s.
No, that's 41. But nonetheless, it's just the point being is the system competition, and you got to make sure that people aren't running shadow candidates just to diffuse the vote.
Which is
what happened in District 2 for certain. So what we really want is what the people choosing, not money choosing, and allow people to be close. So 10-1 to me doesn't guarantee the results, but 7-3-1, the hybrid system, really means that the money interest will dominate the at-large seats for the most part.
Right.
Because even in the old days, all the at-large incumbents, with the exception when Mr. Rouse served, all lived north of the boulevard.
Correct. Because, and even with the 3 at-large, you can have those 3 at-large members living in the same neighborhood.
Well, that can happen.
That can happen.
Well, I don't know that it's ever happened, but we've had certainly 2 council members live in the same, because Lewis and I lived in the same district.
Okay,
we lived on the same street. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, but that's another story.
Mhm.
But I also lived other places before I lived there. But it's important people know it can happen.
Yeah.
And look, when you look at the map of where the money is coming from for 10-1, I know whoever did that map deserves a kudos for transparency.
East side of the city.
It's matter of fact, it's almost all within the direct resort strip and probably within a mile of
I was going to say within 3 miles.
3
They're all
miles.
within 3 miles of each other.
$600,000.
So that's kind of what I want to talk to next. I want to follow the money. When I was looking last night, $583,250 raised since June for the No campaign. 83% of that money is real estate and retail. No surprise there. Donors and spokespeople on the Every Vote Counts, which is the No campaign. That's what their ballot referendum's called. You've got former Mayor Will Setham.
It's who it counts for is what's important.
Right. Linwood Branch, Cash Green, Stacey Cummings, etc. Their position is counter to yours, and they're obviously pushing hard to go back to an at-large. Why do you think some of your former colleagues on council are pushing so hard for that? And talk about the money piece.
Well, there's two things. In some of those cases, I think that's where they got their money from.
Correct.
And that might explain Cash Green's position.
Mm-hmm.
Other people that's how they think. They think the same. And so it's money just coming around to the thought process of if you have an oligarchy mindset, then you think, oh, we know what's best. And we need to have people who think about the city as a whole, which means is they want to continue the disproportionate discretionary income going to capital investments in the ocean front.
Right.
You can think of Atlantic Park, which won't generate any net revenue to the unrestricted general fund. You can think, why are we spending $50 million on Rudy Park when we have flooding projects we need to fund?
Correct.
Why do we subsidize all these festivals? If they make so much money, why can't the oceanfront create their own LLC and self-finance those? And many of them have lost money. And why is it that if it makes so much money, how come we always have to have annual increases in our real estate tax rate? Because that means either one, we're misusing the money that we get from tourism, or it doesn't generate the money they say it does. But either way, is every time we have to have something, we have to vote to get flooding money, but no one asked me to vote for $180 million for a public money for Atlantic Park, or $47 million for 17th Street. How is that more important than any other street in the city? I'm not saying it isn't important, but those things never get debated.
Right.
But if you want something in your neighborhood, we have to have a referendum for flooding, which is public safety.
Right.
But we don't have to have a referendum on things that are truly discretionary. And
those decisions are already made.
Oh, I understand.
Before they ever get on the dais.
Well, that might be true. I don't know if empirically true. I won't say it's true.
I know.
I'm a very factual person.
I know,
but I do know when you look at the reality is neighborhoods have been neglected. And the infrastructure in neighborhoods have been neglected, but there's never a shortage of votes. And the other thing is the Green Line.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are 9 people voted, including people in the districts. The only people who voted against breaching the Green Line were Barbara Henley and Jennifer Rouse. And before that, it was Mr. Taylor and Barbara Henley. So you are having people in district systems, but if you look often at where we have a uniparty. We might have Democrats and Republicans by self-identification.
I agree with you.
But when it comes to how they vote, their party identification is irrelevant. It's their VPAP credentials, who are financing their campaigns.
Correct.
And they're not representing what people. So what do we have council considering a charter amendment, right? To protect the Green Line. So it would take at least 9 votes. Well, they already had 9 votes.
Right.
I mean, if they want to really have charter protection for the Green Line, then council should ask the General Assembly to take away the city council's legislative authority to rezone south of the Green Line and say it has to be approved by the public on a referendum. That now is the real protection. because that's the same reason why they're against 10-1. They
Right.
realize that they can dominate the mayor's race most of the time.
Mhm.
They can probably get the 3 at-large races for the
Yep.
most part.
Yep.
They're going to get the resort district, so they're already at 5 votes.
Yep.
They only have to win 1 of the remaining 6 districts. This is not about they're not you getting 5 votes, it's they're getting 6 votes.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
This
They're
is all
opposing.
about making sure, that game made the odds be forever in your favor from Hunger Games. They're trying to make sure that the odds are forever in their favor
That is
to
correct.
maintain control.
Status quo.
They see these close races in District 3. They saw the results in District 8. They certainly didn't like District 10 vote.
Mhm.
They could see where they could buy a vote in
Mhm.
District 7, more or less.
Absolutely.
And so this is what the dynamics, money doesn't want to surrender
That's
to
correct.
chance.
Right. Right. That's exactly
There's
right.
no guarantee 10-1 will be better.
Yeah.
But there is a guarantee that if we go back to this hybrid 7-3-1, it won't get better.
It's the 2 versus 5. And that is at the core of the opposition to 10-1. It is their messaging. It is as simple as, and I watched this at early voting, the way they speak about it. It's, you want more votes. It's like, you want 2 votes or do you want 5 votes? Which this actually brings, it's so familiar. I am autistic. My pattern recognition is spot on, which is why I became kind of obsessed with what happened in 1994, because I saw what I saw was them overturn the 1994. And I think it's important that 28,000 citizens got together and petitioned to get that ballot referendum in the first place, because city council wasn't interested in a ballot referendum.
Just like light rail.
Just like light rail.
Just like 31st Street Park.
Right.
That we didn't get.
Right. So then we have in 1996, they used the same language on that ballot referendum as the 1994, but then they added, in all caps, no less, if you want to vote for all 11 members of council, then vote yes. If you only want to vote for 5, vote no. And it was back to that same argument that they're using now.
Oh, yes. Because they don't want to tell the truth is, this voting no is voting for the developers to have at least 6 votes.
Correct.
The moneyed oligarchy interests do not want to yield to the public and give the public meaningful, just like you can't get the city to offer a charter amendment that would give initiative and recall.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the things that they don't want, that you have to fight for, but yet when they want to do this south of the Green Line show thing, we're not there. Well, are we going to have a referendum on that first? No, they're going to go. Now, hopefully the General Assembly will require that to be approved by the voters, because I think the voters should always be approving referendum changes. But it just shows you that if you like the status quo, as a matter of fact, one of the arguments I saw in the paper was that people at the oceanfront were concerned about they weren't getting the reaction and didn't have council support for spending another $200 million on the Marine Science Museum. I never attributed that argument until I saw it in the paper, the aquarium. And then, of course, that when it came up that the Atlantic Avenue was going to cost $100 million versus just the $40 million, that kind of like the support dissipated. But then the question you have to ask yourself is, once again, well, the Marine Science Museum or aquarium needed this money. Why did we ever spend first $180 million on Atlantic Park? Because we should have been spending that $100 million, $80 million. So what it tells you is not that council didn't know these bills are out there. That gets in the way of their
vision,
creating private profits with public money with no return to the taxpayer, because all we get is higher real estate tax rates every year.
Correct.
So this is a heat pump principle.
Yeah.
They want to suck the heat out of your wallet, leave you with no cold cash.
Right.
And move it. And so it's redistribution of wealth, but not to help people that are least more disadvantaged. It's to help the people that are very much advantaged.
Yeah.
And they are leveraging the taxpayers' money as their own little capital financing entrepreneurial account, for which they get subsidized loans, land for dollar leases, And like I said,
Oh, don't get me started about
there's-
the
there's-
lands,
they're
the
clearly- they're-
development authority and the.
there's clearly no, they don't practice capitalism on the city council when it comes to the taxpayers' money, which is why our taxes always
Well,
go up.
It's always
and
easier to spend other people's money, right, John?
Oh no, but 10-1 doesn't guarantee
Right.
that it won't be business as usual.
Right,
It just
sure.
creates the opportunity for the public, if they want to make a change, they don't have to go hand in hat
Right.
to money interest to run a campaign.
Right.
I've never gone there myself. Maybe I'm an anomaly that I've ever got elected, but it just shows you that it's very difficult for people who have a civic heart and would like to get involved, that money has become the barrier. And as the city has grown, it's gotten harder.
Well, we're a city of 458,000 people. Now, if you ask me, my opinion is we need a larger council based on the size of our city. I just don't think that 11 people should be making the decisions for a city of 450,000 people. I think that the argument could be made that we could have 10 districts, but multi-member districts, 2 per district, right? And when I present that to Democrats and Republicans, the first response, swear to God, from either one, first response, where would they all sit? Okay.
Well, I don't know about multi-member districts, but I do think that that's an issue. Once again, is that's something the public can have a discussion on.
Right, to explain,
My view has always been, I'd like to see us go to a strong mayor form of council, form of government, to have the chief executive be elected. The manager is not a chief executive. He's a chief operating officer, and he's often used as, or whoever holds the position, I should say, serves for 6 people. And it's like, oh, well, I don't have 6 votes. I can't do this. We can't do this. Well, we just ought to have a city this size. There ought to be the person who's running the city ought to be a chief executive, ought to be elected and accountable to the public directly, not a voting member of council. No.
Interesting. Okay.
So you could still have 11 members of city council because he wouldn't be sitting in the meetings.
Right.
And and so you could have 11 districts, and they could pick their own president, which I think would make sense in that case, because versus electing the president of the council, it's a different it's a different job.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a directly elected chief executive, then the mayor, the presiding officer of the council, somewhat like the speaker of the house, the body picks who they want to be their presiding officer. Yeah. And they vote. And I think that would be another improvement along with runoffs. And I'm also in favor of putting to the public, not making it. I think that no one should be able to serve more than 1 term as mayor, just like the governor.
Oh, interesting.
So you got to go out there and make your thing, and you're done, and one and done. And that council members shouldn't serve more than 2 or 3 terms.
Yeah, I was going to say for me, 2 or 3 would be max.
And
but
the public should vote on that. That shouldn't not. And I think that some term limits would pass.
Yeah,
but I don't believe that. But that's something the General Assembly should pass general legislation that every county has to, maybe at every decennial census, the first general election to follow is a question could be on the ballot every 10 years and get the people to choose if that's something that they would want to have. And that's another way of holding government accountable, because that's what we should really want is accountability. And that's why members of Congress are elected every 2 years. Why? The founders wanted to make sure they were never far from the ballot box. They could never rest easy but of course, those districts were 30,000 at the founding of the republic.
Right.
And now they're almost 1 million.
That's correct.
And so it's
different.
You could argue that maybe Congress is too small, but nonetheless,
that is a different argument of mine. Different debate, different day.
But the focus today is, if you want the opportunity for better governance, and I don't think anyone's happy with the current decisions that councils as a whole have been making, probably since Will Sessoms became mayor and the cabal started. But but we need a change.
We do.
And the public needs an opportunity. So if you sit at your table, discuss it about money and politics, like most people do.
I wish most people did, John.
I think most people have turned off because of all money. They think my vote never counts.
It's true.
I think there is because look at the turnout when people could vote on light rail. Look what that turnout was.
Well, yeah.
And when they could vote on the referendum, which I think many council members hope would fail because it sucks up a lot of borrowing authority, 72% of the people voted yes.
Yeah, right.
They were shocked.
Right.
when they think their vote counts, they show up. And
Do
I think
you-
that votes count more in the district system. And if you look at the results, you can't judge it on two cycles, but just the two cycles have shown that incumbents' margins are narrower,
That's right.
and that
Yeah.
new faces get elected, and faces that aren't necessarily, some backed by the traditional moneyed interest,
Mhm.
some not.
That's
So
right.
I think that
That is
that
interesting.
that turbulence, it's all, I often said, I worked, for the Navy for 42 years. Well, every 2 to 3 years, we got a new admiral.
Mhm.
Every 3-star wants to be a 4-star, right? So they're
Right.
always looking to show and demonstrate what
Their
they've
capabilities
achieved, what
are.
their capabilities are. And I think that's, so if you want to stay in a job, well, did you
do the job?
but if you can vote against the green line and run at large,
Mhm.
well, and then so it's like, hey, the people that have the money, and so these other voices never get on the ballot. So what's on the menu is limited, right?
Right.
You can choose which of the money back candidates you like. But
Mhm.
in the in District 1 race
Mhm.
was a case of, one was I'll call it, represented probably a lot city employees, and I call it but an institutionalist, city kind of like the bureaucracy representative.
Right.
And then one of them was more of a Republican creed kind of candidate.
Mhm.
They both ran, those were close races.
They-
Those
yeah.
were but they both ran door-to-door campaigns.
They did.
And one of them did get more than 50% of the votes.
Right.
But it wasn't easy.
No.
They had to work.
They did.
And I
Yeah.
think we want the people to get those jobs to have to have worked hard to get them.
That's right.
And it's easy for us to fire them.
Right.
And 10-1
Yeah.
is that system.
10-1 is easy to fire them.
731 is a system of the status quo, insulated at large members, limited choice to pick at candidates, and money decides who can run for those jobs. And that's not the electoral system anyone would want. We don't have it for Congress. We don't have it for the state Senate. You don't see any state senators saying, let's go for a hybrid system in the state, do you?
Nope.
You don't see any House of Delegate members saying we want a hybrid system for the General Assembly and the House. No, there's a reason.
Right.
And there's a reason for the public to trust their gut. And the people are spending $600,000
ding, ding,
to
and
try to
using
convince.
propaganda.
Well,
to,
put that
for the
aside.
message.
Whatever the message is, the fact that they're spending $600,000 to tell you how you should vote is the first sign it's not in your best interest, because no one has to tell you to take your hand off a hot stove.
Right. Not at this age.
So your natural reaction should be, huh?
Right.
That what's in it for them? What's in it for them is business as usual, continually raising your taxes every year, continuing $24 million publicly financed garages for private developments, high density zonings in your neighborhood, breaching the green line. This is all about the flow of cash. They're not interested in you being more effective in your vote. No way.
No.
I mean, it's disingenuous to be kind. They are advocating their selfish best interest. And that's what America is all about. But your best selfish interest to the other 445,000 people is to vote for 10-1.
That's right.
And then we will have different district boundaries than we have today. So my neighbor across the street won't be in a different district than me. The resort district won't be 2 districts. Now, the real debate is what's going to be the process by which the districts are drawn for, no matter what the answer is. And the last people you want drawing them is 11 members of city council.
Correct.
Or people they appoint. So this is my suggestion.
Oh, I'd love to hear this.
We have about 20 zip codes in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Consolidate those into 10 pairs. Then go into the voter registrar's list and pick at random 5 voters from each of those pairings.
Okay.
Present those universes to a judge. He has to pick one of those 5. If you're going to pick a jury that can condemn people to death, they certainly can draw boundaries.
Right.
So he has to pick one of those 5. They then form the group of 10. He then They then pick one of those 10 districts at random,
Mhm.
and he picks one more person to be the non-voting chairman
Mm.
of the group. They then sequester this group, pay them decently.
Mhm.
They then get supported by the demographic drawers. They then come up with a map, and council has to vote it up or down. They can then feed their comments if it's down back to the judge. He can feed it to the group. He then takes that. They make adjustments, and the judge looks at that, and then the judge says, "Hey, it makes good." He approves it.
Okay.
And then it goes to the General Assembly. But we cannot allow if General Assembly had the independent commission, right? They each side appointed their people. And what happened? Ended up being the courts ended up drawing it because they couldn't agree. Because why?
Agree, right.
Because they can't put their selfish interest behind them.
Right.
So you have to get. So we pick juries at random to make huge decisions.
Yeah, I agree.
So why not picture a random kind of process to pick the people to draw the boundaries?
I agree.
And I think we would be just fine. And
Right.
and you would see, we could then look at the natural geography and cultures of our community. You know, we got bayfronts, we got all this. We could have 10 districts. Now, they might not generate the same minority issues that 10-1 does today, but and I know this is why I have a difference of opinion with some of my things, is I just think that legal construct that's novel is not going to be sustained, and that we're going to have the freedom to draw either 7-3-1 or 10-1 the right way. But if we want to make our community better, and we want to reflect our geography, our culture, and our differences, and take as much as we can, minimize the distasteful and adverse, and I would call it unrepublic influence of money on the results. 10-1 is a system that does that. I realize I won under at. Someone said, "Well, John, but you would have probably won if you ran at large." I said, "It's not about what my victory, my win, what could have happened, what might not have happened. It's what, by reason and logic, our history of our country, what's the dominant practice tells us that 10-1 and has its own ills, best serves the republic."
Right.
And I think, and best serves the people.
Right.
And we should trust our history and our heritage and our common sense and reject this oligarchic that wants to continue to run our city, that I think not to its advantage.
It's really interesting you say that people say, "Oh, but John, you know, because you've won on at large in the past, right? You've sat on council multiple times,
17 years."
Yeah. And so what's so funny is I'm like, y'all better be careful what you wish for, because I can win on an at large. I live in District 6. I absolutely know I cannot win on District 6, but because of my decade of community involvement, you know, I've served the unhoused community in multiple different ways in partnership with the city. I've sat on a board of a nonprofit that was a partner in education with the city. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, I could win if I ran at large. I cannot win in my own district. And so that would tell you, right? But if you could, I don't want that.
It's a daunting task to run at large.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But I mean, I'm not scared of that.
Bukus of money and run. And as long as they have splinter plurality to win races, we've had people elected at large on 17% of the vote.
That's insanity.
When there were 9 people running at large. So people need to understand how this at large seats, how the fact that because we have this plurality of elections, that people can run candidates.
Do you have a favorite? So there's a ton of taglines that obviously the Every Vote Counts No campaign is using. Do you have one tagline that you have a good one, and it was something about representation, because they are saying something, the one of their signs is like taxation without representation or something like that.
Well, I've done videos. I've done 4 videos which have been out on there. One is on taxation without representation. And my answer is, does anyone think that the state of Virginia has taxation without representation? When the founders, and had that in the Declaration of Independence in part, is because we had no representation in Parliament. We had no voting members in the British Parliament. So Does anyone think that the city of Suffolk, which has 7 districts, voting districts, actually districts, and not at large, and do they have taxation without representation? Does anyone say the Congress is not legitimate because it's taxation without representation? No, it's ludicrous. The fact that someone would even put that on a sign, knowing that's legally and factually incorrect, tells you they have no ethics.
That's right.
Right there tells you they have no ethics. And someone says, we're taking your voting rights away. Well, I didn't hear them go up and say that in testimony when HB 2198 was passed.
That's right.
That you were taking my voting rights away, or that the current way we elect the state Senate and the state House of Delegates is taking my vote, denying me a vote I should have. Because if it's a right, it means that you should have a right to vote for every member of every legislature. So once again, it's designed to play on a theme. It reminds me that My Country 'Tis-a-Thee is written to the same music as God Save the Queen. So what you do is you take something that's familiar, you take it out of context because you're trying to play and you're trying to hope that people won't think, which also tells you what they think about
the voter.
They don't respect you enough to make an honest argument and say, you don't hear them explaining, why am I giving $600,000? I don't see these people whose names you've mentioned come up and say, I want to put my face on it and I sponsored this ad. You don't see it because they're not candidates, obviously. But my point is,
except for Jason Miyares,
they wish there wasn't VPAP.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But so a guy on the end of 27th Street who owns like 2 acres or whatever it is, 22nd Street, and there's an article in the Pilot once he would hope to sell that to the city Giddy for convention hotel. So he gives $10,000. What's the connection? The same people that gave Bobby Dyer $20,000 when he voted for their development south of the Green Line gives $25,000 to vote no.
So the vote no campaign, correct.
But they never talk to the substance. You don't hear. I'd love to be up here on a stage with their proponent and say, let's talk about the history of Virginia Beach, and let's talk about why we have what we have and what the results have been and what they could be.
They would never do that,
because John, on substance their arguments are shallow.
Absolutely.
They're and I won't say they're necessarily fear. They're playing on people's thought processes that support the district system.
I'll say
taxation without representation is what the district system is.
Or parents, you won't have a vote on school board.
Making your vote count. Well, like I said before, is if you want to make your vote count for the $600,000 voters, then you would want to have the hybrid system. If you want your vote and your neighbor's vote to count powerfully, so that you collectively across 10 districts can make a city that's more responsible to the majority of the residents versus this oligarchic interest, then you want 10-1. Because while you can't vote for your neighbor's district, you know that he's got or she's got the same power of their vote that you have. And that when you all as the citizens think the same, it's like cell theory.
Yeah.
Well, then all the cells work together. They do not want the ability of the majority to have an effective voice.
They use tribalism as an excuse too, trying to say that it'll be very tribal and
this is invisible.
I don't agree with that.
This is the invisible hand. They're really saying they are against capitalism because the invisible hand theory says what? That everybody acting in their best interest come together. We'll see when there is natural coalitions of the willing, they're going to produce different answers than when you have these monopolistic kind of things. You don't get the innovation, you're going to get more disruption. So in reality, everything they're saying is the advantage of 10-1, because that's the case of people who want regional government, right? Because we don't get... Corporations get together when it's in their what? Their best interest. All those $600,000 people are coming together because it's in their best interest not to allow the larger common interest to prevail.
I mean, that is so clear.
So if you're into believing and these competition thing and these then you want 10-1 because it gives you more diversity, more competition.
Yeah.
And out of that comes what? It's not stagnate. One thing I liked about having a new admiral every 2 or 3 years, they had to prove themselves, but also they had the common mission. So they had, and they got stuff done. I think one-term governor also is in Virginia is a good thing. So term limits should be coming independent of what system we choose. But you put 10-1 and put term limits together, we get the kind of disruption that's constructive because we don't get, we're suffering from, I'd say since probably 95, we've had this belief that we can pick and choose the winners. And my best example is in 1986, 86% of tax base was residents, the whole taxable base of the whole taxable property.
Oh, okay.
2025, it's still 86% of the property tax comes from residences.
Yep.
So, and most of the meal tax comes from residents.
But the 14% are the ones that are trying to control everything.
Correct. But their strategy has failed because they promise this system that they've chosen of subsidies and this that we can generate and we can have a dividend because we've invested, made a choice, and these are now because we've made these big thinker choices. We know what's best. You know, the non-tribal choices.
Right.
Atlantic Park. You pick the thing, and these high density that we're going to benefit, and we're going to be able to lower taxes.
Right.
Have we ever lowered the tax rate because of any of those projects?
No.
Have we increased the real estate tax every single year? Almost yes.
Almost yes.
Have we, every time we had to have something for radios, we had to raise the cigarette tax to get radios for ambulances. Oh, we had to raise the personal property tax from $3.60 to $4 to get some for police equipment. And so that the basic very foundations of the city, we have that should be the first things we fund. We have to raise taxes for.
We have to raise taxes.
Well, because we have to have, we can't, heaven forbid, we can't have money for festivals and we can't have built parking garages and we can't have all these taxpayer financed projects. That's why.
That's right.
So if we want to get back to the basics of government, what it really should be doing, then we should be putting those nice to do projects on referendum, not stormwater management.
Right. So
so that's what 10-1 is really about, making you as a stockholder in our city matter. You get an active voice, that the money and how it gets distributed in the city. And, you know, there's a lot of kids at the table, right? One kid can't always get 3 bowls of ice cream and everybody else just gets a biscuit. And so that's what this is really the opportunity, not the guarantee, the opportunity to have a wiser and more fiduciary responsible allocation of money. And also to let people hold people to the fire and say, hey, I can barely survive. You know, why are we creating need for infrastructure south of the Green Line? Why are we, you know, doing some of these public projects? I can't buy groceries.
Right.
This is what 10-1 keeps that elected official much closer to the stove. And he doesn't want to have his hand put on the hot stove. So he's going to figure out how to, or she, to be more responsive. And so I think this is, competition is always healthy. People generally always want to have what? That's what lobbyists are all about. To minimize competition.
Of course, right.
Well, we, the voters, should be smart, vote, vote yes, vote for a better opportunity for you and your family to be more prosperous and to make sure that the council's more accountable. Today, they're too insulated.
Yeah.
And you can see it. People come down there and speak in the hundreds for hours, and they're playing on their phone. They're rolling their eyes.
Look, when I go speak at council, I do not.
Votes made up.
Yeah. When I speak at council, I learned a few years ago that when I come to speak at council, I'm not speaking to council. I'm speaking to the public.
Well, true, but
Right,
but council should be respectful that you are speaking.
No, I agree. I agree. I just learned that I need what I need to be talking about and to is really to the public because of the lack of respect for the speakers and because I figured out really kind of quickly
That's why open mic is
made.
not televised.
Oh, I know why open mic is not televised. Yes, and it's I mean, which also is just it's a conversation for another
day. And we don't
day.
use the public access channel that we have to have what I would call constructive discussions like we're having. I would love to sit across from someone who thinks that the no vote is the right vote, and so it's their choice, and have a discussion on not saying we have to agree because it is a value judgment. It is very much a value judgment, and I'm not going to. I'm just telling you, people, if you value these things, then you want to be for 10-1. If you don't value these things, then you probably want to vote no. But they're playing on, as all campaigns do. You can watch the gubernatorial. These commercials are just
I mean, it's a branding and marketing campaign.
Like they're selling you hemorrhoid cream.
Yeah, branding. Yeah, it's branding and marketing. And you know what? Listen, I will say this. I do think that it is working. I think that the way that the branding and marketing came out for the no campaign has not been advantageous to them at all. Because let me tell you something, people are suspicious. And people that there was a lady last Friday or early voting, and some people want to make this a partisan issue, and very clearly this is not a partisan issue.
It's very much not a partisan issue.
But she said so, but this gave me an insight to her position. Her value system lies within the Republican Party. But when she took the information on yes, she said, this is probably the only thing I will ever align with on the Democratic Party. And so it truly shows you that people are seeing this and they are suspicious. And when people are suspicious, it actually does not work in your favor.
I'm glad one of the things that I think has been a step backwards and is that both parties have, and I won't say who was first or second, that the council races and school board races have become partisan.
Yes.
I know by law they're not in Virginia. They are in Fairfax County.
But they are.
And that has not been to the public's benefit. It has.
Fair.
We would be much better off. Of course, it'd be voluntary that both sides declare that neither one of them are going to just step aside. They're not going to make endorsements. They're not going to get active. And let's just, because council doesn't deal with these social value issue questions. Those get, because we're a Dillon state, those get to be decided in Richmond.
Yeah.
So,
but I think I think your values though,
but you can communicate but on council, partisan doesn't tell you anything.
Right. But I think the money part of that, I mean, it's there's no surprise that even though there are more democratically principled people behind the yes campaign, we don't have money. And if you look at you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you look at the difference in the money, right?
I'm gonna stay away from this.
Yeah.
David Poole was just on the Mike and Carrie show yesterday. David Poole, for many of you don't know, he is the person who founded VPAP.org, which to make contributions not just transparent, but effectively transparent so that anyone can go and look that up.
Super easy website.
So someone said about, I do believe that like Fairfax County, Loudoun County, and I think City of Alexandria have, because though we are a Dillon state, state law does permit those localities to have stricter recusal policies. So if we had a recusal policy that said if you received more than $500 from any person or entity, because it could be an entity, give several donations, however that's worded, you have, when a vote comes before council, you'd have to recuse yourself. Well, then they could never have gotten a majority vote to do Southern Pines south of the Green Line because all of them had received most of them had received more than $500, and some had received tens of thousands of dollars, and that vote could not have happened.
That's right.
So I do think that whatever system the public chooses, and that runoffs, and we do need this policy where, and I think $500 is a good threshold.
I
So
agree.
you are required to recuse yourself because it gets back to the appearance. But I couldn't vote on Atlantic Park, and I had to recuse myself because I received more than $5,000 of dividend from Dominion Resources, and the city was acquiring property from them to do Atlantic Park and an Exxon station, which also I'm a fossil fuel person. So anyway, I couldn't vote, but you could receive $20,000 from a person who had a vested economic interest in Atlantic Park, and you could have voted because campaign contributions don't count.
Yeah, we can do a whole show on campaign finance reform.
But I'm trying to get back to why you're seeing the patterns of voting is not only can they decide who gets there, but when they get there, they can still vote. So they truly are. They're not giving $20,000 out of the goodness of their heart.
No.
And they're not donating this. They're not donating this $600,000 because they're part of the good citizens. I'm thinking the best of the city. They're going to profit directly, continue to disproportionately consume resources.
That's right.
At the public's expense by going to the hybrid system. They can still leverage the 10-1. It's just harder.
Right.
It's just all it does. It's harder.
And I mean, people don't want to do hard things, honestly. I mean, if they can buy their way out of doing something hard, they're going to try.
But they invested money in the other party's candidate in my race because he really votes most of the time with the money.
You're not going to get me to disagree about that.
Yes. So anyway, so my point is 10-1 is really the common sense vote. It's your gut tells you that's right. Because why? It's the heritage of our country.
That's right.
It is. And so now, and we only had this system that we had because it was the only way that Prince Anne County could save itself from being consumed by Norfolk.
Yes.
And if you go back and look and say, well, how did that come to be? They wanted to make sure the agricultural community had the majority of a lot of the vote. So if you're from Pungo and there's only a Blackwater and there's only 2,000 residents, you can pretty much pick who the candidate is. So they only get one choice. So your voice is strong. And the other thing they were concerned about was all the debt the city could issue. It would be on farmland, right? They get the tax. So they said, well, if you're going to borrow more than $10 million a year in the amount you retired the prior year, you had to go to referendum. And that kind of held for a while till the city council oligarchy figures, we can borrow money via the development authority legally, but unethically circumvent the charter. And then we can finance without having to ask the public. We can finance all, which is what they've done. So this just shows you that they fear the voter.
They do fear the voter.
They fear the voter because they say, oh gosh, when the voters get a chance to vote, they voted against light rail. We spent $2 million trying to get light rail, and they wanted a regional sales tax. You may recall, I was active in that thing. That was their whole region. They got their hat handed to them, and they had to figure out something. Then they thought that the thing Supreme Court said, no, that's unconstitutional. They lost that vote 7-0. Then they came up with the state will collect the money first and then give it to. They finally found a way. Because why? They know the public has the common sense to sniff out when something's not in their best interest. And if they get a chance to vote against it, they will. They make sure you don't. And so here, they're now wanting this referendum. This is interesting because they want to convince you to vote against your best interest to institutionalize forever their monopoly on controlling the bureaucracy, the city manager form of government that we have. And we need to say no to that by saying yes to 10-1. And I'm an advocate for good government. I don't care about party. I don't care about any of that. But I have seen and experienced it on myself, on that body, the disproportionate influence of the folks that $600,000 is a reflection of. And we want 10-1 to make sure they don't get to dominate city council.
Well, John, that was perfect ending. Thank you so much for sitting down talking with me about it. It really, I do love talking to you, especially about this issue. And I hope that all of our listeners and viewers have learned something. And
I'm sure I'll get feedback.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, anyway, thank you for having me. Thank you for the public for listening. I always tell people I have a Facebook, and
follow John Moss.
Yeah, if you want to email me, I always tell people I'll save my phone number.
Yeah.
Although I'll be out of the country for about a month and a couple of days.
So jealous.
But you can call me. Send me a text. Don't call,
there
please.
There we go. Yeah.
757-636-1534. That's 757-636-1534.
You're brave,
I can't say I answer everything. I do my best. Sometimes I get a lot of things. I'll just do one Facebook post. But you can email me at John D. Moss, all one expression. The number's 4109, John D. Moss, 4109 @gmail.com. And I can't say I answer all emails. If I get a lot of them, I'll do a collective response on my Facebook. But I have no problem. I'm a strong believer in free enterprise, limited government, expanding personal liberty, and most importantly of all, the application of reason.
Yes. But that is where you and I can agree. Logic and reason. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's it for this week's dose of national dysfunction.
If you learned something, got pissed off, or just laughed through the rage, do us a favor. Share this episode with someone who still believes that it can't happen here.
Follow us, subscribe, and hit us up on socials, because if you aren't at the table, you are on the menu.
This is the Dissent Agenda. Stay informed, stay loud, and stay in the fight.